He nearly rode his horse right over her before he saw she was a person, and not a drift of dark cloth blown down into the draw. Abel Nash reined the gelding hard, its hooves throwing up a spray of the night's snow, and swung down before he had rightly thought about it. A woman lay in the frozen bottom of the cut below Coyote Mesa, one arm flung out, her black hair stiff with ice, her deerskin dress soaked through and going gray at the hem where the frost had taken it. Apache. He knew it at a glance from the beadwork and the cut of the moccasins, and he knew, too, in the same glance, that she was near enough to death that another hour would have finished the job. He did not think about whose land this was, or the raids the valley talked about, or what the men at the line camp would say. He thought only that she was freezing, and he was not. Then he felt the eyes. He straightened slow and looked up at the mesa rim, and they were there. 3 riders, still as stone against the gray dawn, watching him from the high ground. Apache men, wrapped against the cold, and he understood in his gut that they had been watching a while, that they had likely followed her tracks as he had followed the cattle's, and that they had chosen not to come down. They were waiting. They wanted to see what the white man would do with a daughter of their people found helpless in the snow. His hand did not go to his rifle. He turned his back on the riders, a thing that cost him, a thing he made himself do on purpose so they would read it plain, and knelt down and gathered the freezing woman up out of the draw as gently as he knew how. She was not unconscious. Her eyes came open as he lifted her, dark and clear and entirely aware, and they went first to the men on the rim and then to his face, measuring him with a calm that startled him in a person so close to dying. She did not struggle, and she did not thank him. She only watched, taking his measure the way he'd take the measure of weather he had to ride through, and Abel found he wanted, badly and for no reason he could name, to be found equal to that look. He got her up before him on the gelding, wrapped in his own coat and his saddle blanket both, and he turned the horse toward his line shack a mile down the draw, and he rode slow and steady with the 3 riders, following along the rim the whole way, never closer, never gone. Her name, he learned that first day by the stove, was Nalene. She gave it to him in careful English, once the shaking had eased and the color had come back into her hands, and she gave it the way a person hands over something that is hers, to give, and not his to take. "My grandmother named me for the first light on the rock," she said, "before the sun, when the stone goes from gray to gold. She said I was born in that hour." She watched him feed the fire. "You turned your back on my brothers, on the rim. You know they might have killed you for a fool." "Figured they were deciding whether to," Abel said. "Figured if I showed them my back, it'd tell them more than showing them my rifle would." He set the coffee to warm. "How'd you come to be down in that draw, if it's a thing I can ask?" "My horse went through ice at the seep and threw me, and ran," Nalene said simply. "I hurt my ankle. I could not climb out, and the cold came faster than my brothers could find the trail. They found it near dawn. They found you first." A faint, dry humor moved through her voice. "Now they will sit on that rim and eat cold meat and argue about you until they know what you are. My brother Tsanik thinks all white men are one thing. My brother Losan thinks a man is what he does when he thinks no one watches. They will have watched you all the way down the draw to settle it." "And what do you think?" Abel said, before he could stop himself. Nalene looked at him a long moment across the small firelit room. "I think," she said, "you did not once ask yourself whether I was worth the trouble. That is rare in any man. I am deciding what else it means." He did not press her. He was a line rider, a young man alone at the far edge of a big outfit, and he had learned patience the way you learn it out here. From horses, from weather, from the long empty stretches where hurrying only gets you hurt. He warmed broth, and he splinted her turned ankle with a shirt torn into strips and 2 smooth sticks, working careful, asking each time before he touched her, and she watched his hands and said nothing. And something in the shack eased between them by degrees, the way ice goes off still water. The 3 brothers came down off the rim on the second morning. Abel heard the horses and stepped out into the snow to meet them empty-handed, no rifle, his coat still wrapped around their sister inside. The oldest, Tsanik, he guessed, by the hard set of him, sat his horse and looked down at the white man for a long, cold while, and then spoke, in English, better than Abel's own. "You had our sister 2 nights, alone, a white man and an Apache woman, and no one on this whole mesa to see or to stop you." His eyes were flat. "Speak to that. She's got a turned ankle and a splint on it, and she's warm and fed, and she's your sister the same as she was when she fell," Abel said. "You want to see her? She's inside, and she's free to go the minute she can walk, and freer than that this second, if you've a mind to carry her. I'll not stop you, and I'll not charge you for the trouble. She's not mine to keep." He met the flat eyes. "I found a person freezing. I'd have done the same for any soul in that draw. That's the whole of it, and I'll swear to it, and you can ask her." They asked her. Naleen spoke to her brothers from the doorway in their own tongue, long and level, and Abel could not follow a word of it. But he watched the hardness go out of the youngest one's shoulders, and he watched Sonic look at him again, with something changed behind his eyes. When she finished, the middle brother, Losan, swung down off his horse and walked up to Abel and did a thing Abel did not expect. He put out his hand, in the white man's way, and gripped Abel's own. "She says you asked before you touched the ankle," Losan said. "She says you turned your back on the rim on purpose. A man is what he does when he thinks no one watches. But you knew we watched, and you did the same as if we did not." He let go the hand. "That is a harder thing. We see you, Abel Nash. You will bring her to our camp when the ankle is healed, and you will eat at our fire, because a man who carries our sister out of the snow does not do it as a stranger, and then ride away a stranger. That would shame us both." Naleen healed slow, through the deep of that winter, and Abel Nash rode the long snowbound weeks between his line work and the Apache camp under Coyote Mesa, and the thing the brothers had started grew into something none of them had planned. He learned the trail to their winter grounds. He learned to sit at their fire and hold his tongue until he had something worth saying, which Losan told him laughing was the first white manners he'd ever seen. He learned that Naleen was not the quiet woman he'd carried out of the draw at all, that she was quick and dry-humored and stubborn as a wintered mule, that she knew the Mesa country better than any man in his outfit, that she had refused 2 marriages her people thought good matches because, she said plainly, she would not spend her one life beside a man who did not see her. She learned him too. She learned that his honest, plain code went all the way down, that he was gentler than his hard young hands looked, that he listened, really listened, in a way she had found in few men of any people. There was a day, near the middle of that winter, when the debt ran the other way. A norther caught Abel out on the flats hunting a lost yearling, the temperature falling like a stone, and the light going with it, and he lost his bearings in the blowing white, the way even a careful man can, in country turned strange by snow. He would have ridden in circles until the cold took him. Men did, every winter. But Naleen, watching the sky darken from the camp, and knowing he was out in it, took her healed ankle and a good horse, and rode out into the teeth of it after him. She found him by reading the land the way he could not, the drifts, and the wind scour, and the shape of the ground beneath the snow, and she brought him back across country he'd have sworn held no trail, sure as a hawk crossing open sky. "You could have died coming for me," Abel said that night, shamed and grateful in equal measure, huddled at her family's fire with the feeling coming back painful into his feet. "So could you, the morning in the draw," Naleen said, unbothered, wrapping a hot stone in hide and pressing it against his hands. "Now we are even, and even is a good place for 2 people to begin from, better than one owing the other. My grandmother says a thing carried only one way is a burden, but a thing carried both ways is a bridge." She looked at him steadily across the flame. "I did not come out into that storm because I owed you, Abel Nash. I came because I could not bear the thought of the world with you frozen in it. You should know the difference. I wished you to know it." It was the most she had said of what lay between them, and Abel did not spoil it with too many words. He only turned his warmed hand over and let it rest open on the ground between them, palm up, not reaching, only offering, and after a moment, she laid her own hand in it, and they sat like that a long while at her people's fire, while the norther howled itself out against the mesa, and no one at that fire thought a thing of it, because they had all long since decided what he was. The winter's worst came in the form of a fever that swept the camp when the snows were deepest, and it took the old, and it took the young, and it laid Naline herself down for a hard week. Abel came the moment word reached him, riding a killing pace through a whiteout to get there, and he sat the watch beside her with her brothers, and he did not leave. And when the fever broke in her at last, and her clear dark eyes found his face bent over her, red-eyed and unshaven, and half frozen from the ride, she understood the whole of what she had been deciding all winter, and it was decided. "You came through the storm," she said, weak, wondering. "Course I did," Abel said, rough. "Where else would I be?" Spring came up the draw slow and green, and the seep that had nearly killed her ran clear again, and Abel Nash asked Naline to be his wife. Asked her first, alone, so that it was hers to answer, and then asked her brothers and her uncle at their fire in the proper way, so that it was done with honor to her people, and not behind their backs. Sanik, who had once demanded he speak for himself in the snow, gave his word gladly. "We watched to see what you would do," the oldest brother said. "That first morning on the rim. We have been watching ever since. You have not once been a different man when you thought we could not see. That is the only marriage gift we ask, and you have already paid it 100 times." They were wed twice, once by the Apache way, at the camp under Coyote Mesa, with Naline's grandmother singing her into her new life in the language of the first light she was named for, and once by a circuit preacher down at the Valley Chapel, so that the white law would hold their marriage as true as the Mesa already did. Abel built them a house where the two countries met, in the mouth of the draw with the Mesa rising behind and the valley opening before, and Naline chose the spot herself, standing in the gold hour after which she was named, saying it was the place where a person could belong to both and be less in neither. There were folks in the valley who did not understand it, and folks who never would, and Abel Nash found he did not much care what they made of it. He had ridden out one gray dawn and nearly stepped his horse on a dark shape in the snow, and he had chosen, without weighing the cost, to see a freezing person and not an enemy, and that one plain choice had opened him a whole life he had not known to want. On winter mornings after, when the frost lay in the draw and the first light came up gold on the rock, exactly the way her grandmother had named her, he would find Naline standing in the doorway of their house, watching it, and he would come and stand beside her, and neither of them needed to say the thing they both knew, that he had gone out looking for stray cattle, and had found instead the one person in all that hard country he was meant to bring home.